Chapter 2411. Surprise 3. Our team sadly announces that starting from next week, the release rate for DKC will be changed from 3 to 2 per week due to limited staff and funds. Thanks to those who continuously support us. As the saying goes, to catch the thieves, first catch their king, right? It will be resolved as long as you get that chief to follow our instructions, Nangong Luyun said in a concise manner. But how do we make that king obey? Su Luo wanted to ask about the technique. Unfortunately, Nangong Luyun's technique was truly too straightforward. Beat him until he listens. What's so hard about that? Nangong Luyun had the look of, it was so simple. How did you not think of it? Su Luo choked on her words. This kind of thing that relies on violence. Your servant can't accomplish it. Okay. Su Luo felt that it was difficult to think of a method to make the leader of the magical beast army obedient. But for Nangong Luyun, it was as simple as eating food and drinking water. He was truly like someone angering someone else to death. Clearly, the first time she met with Nangong Luyun, the level gap between them was not too great. Who knew that things would be like this now? Su Luo became so depressed that her heart ached. How many points? Seeing Su Luo like that, Nangong Luyun, who had been enjoying her adoring gaze, changed the topic in a timely fashion. Right. Su Luo immediately became excited, and her face glowed radiantly. Wow, just with as little effort as it takes to talk, there are already 12 million points. Su Luo's eyes instantly lit up dazzlingly. She had not spent more than 10 minutes talking to Nangong Luyun just then, right? Yet had already increased to 12 million points? Su Luo was so excited that she was about to shed tears of happiness. Yesterday, she initially thought that cooperating with Nangong Luyun was the fastest way to gain points. But it was only at this moment that she realized what it truly meant to gain points. She didn't do anything. She just sat on the wall with Nangong Luyun, gossiping while watching the armies battle before them. However, there were wonderfully sweet clinking sounds ringing clearly in her ears. Each sound made Su Luo smile, and her mood blossomed like a flower. Time passed by unconsciously. 50 million points, 100 million points, 200 million points, 300 million points. Su Luo looked at the numbers that kept on climbing upwards. Her originally delicate and fair face was now red from excitement, and her beautiful eyes were as bright as stars, shining brightly. On the huge square in front, there were densely packed corpses of magic beasts lying on the ground. After this battle, only a third of the originally vast armies of magic beasts remained. The leaders of the two armies of magic beasts came forward and jabbered like a bunch of birds. Then the two armies began to reshuffle and line up before leaving in completely opposite directions. Su Luo was dumbfounded. They're leaving just like that? Nangong Luyun patted her head disgruntledly. Still unhappy after you earned so many points with no effort? Isn't the battle unfinished? Su Luo looked at the number on her diamond, token 350, 0,000,000 points. If the two armies continued fighting, she would be able to gather up 500 million. 500 million. It was so tempting to think about, right? Nangong Luyun looked at her with displeasure. Do you think they're brain dead? Will they really wipe each other out? If they're all annihilated, who will come to do the quest on this map after that? That's right, Su Luo agreed silently. You know, I really don't know what kind of ridiculous luck you have. I'm really impressed by you. Nangong Luyun shook his head in amusement. This kind of battle between magical beast armies only happens once in 100 years. You sure got yourself a great deal just by being able to stumble upon it. It only happens once in 100 years? There is such a huge gap in between. Su Luo was surprised. Chapter 2412. Surprise 4. Our team sadly announces that starting from next week, the release rate for DKC will be changed from 3 to 2 per week due to limited staff and funds. Thanks to those who continuously support us. Of course. Otherwise, did you think they would come out every day just to fool around and do nothing? Nangong Luyun said with a chuckle. In fact, the magical beast corps needs 100 years to grow the size of their troops from small and sparse to big, and then to huge and congested. So, They would automatically organize an event to select the cream of the crop every 100 years. You mean the battle between these two troops was actually a selection of the elite? Su Luo was surprised. She thought those two troops were fighting over the territory. Yes, the fittest survive and the weak are eliminated. This is natural selection. Only the elites can survive this battle every century. It was exactly because of this selection of the elite every 100 years that the average strength of the entire Temple of the Abyss could improve step by step. By the way, you helped me organize this troop of blazing magical beasts just now. What about the dark magical beasts? Didn't you save something for yourself? Su Luo expressed her disbelief. Nangong Luoyuan smiled. His Luo Luo had always understood him well. Nangong Luoyuan opened his right palm. A transparent crystal ball swiftly appeared. The originally clear crystal ball now looked like it was soaked in ink. Strands of black string almost consumed the entire space within the crystal. This is, Su Luo gasped with wide eyes. Could this be the departed spirit of the dark magical beast? She once read from a book that the practice of the dark element was associated with the principle of the departed spirits. You actually do know a lot. Nangong Luoyuan curved the corner of his lips. This crystal ball indeed has the departed spirits' souls collected inside. Fortunately for me, you chose a troop of blazing magical beasts. If Su Luo had chosen the troop of dark magical beasts, Nangong Luoyuan wouldn't have been able to collect these departed spirits. It's all thanks to your good fortune. These dark departed spirits are enough for me to cultivate for half a year. Nangong Luoyuan knew that he was now in a period of steady growth because he had improved too fast in the earlier stages. It was fortunate this time that they ran into the PK-1 between the troops of magical beasts, which allowed him to obtain so many benefits for free. This time, Su Luo gained 350 million points. Meanwhile, Nangong Luoyuan obtained half of a year's amount of dark departed spirits to cultivate with. Most importantly, the two of them didn't even join the battle. They just watched the show and collected all the goodies. Other people would definitely cough up blood out of jealousy if they found out about this. After obtaining all these benefits, the two pact kept away the bed and decided to go to the spirit transformation pond while holding hands. This was because Su Luo still had 2 crystal pieces with her. Su Luo was looking forward to what surprises these 2 crystal pieces would bring her. She knew that Nangong Luoyuan would probably leave after she mastered the skill. So she strolled very slowly, dragging Nangong Luoyuan along. They visited various places from day to night before finally arriving at the edge of the spirit transformation pond. Watching the steam of the spirit transformation pond, Su Luo laughed, recalling the time the Thorn Captain threw the crystal pieces into the pond. Right at this moment, the Thorn Captain walked over smugly with 3 subordinates. He had already collected all 10 pieces of the Dark Heart. The Thorn Captain walked over obsequiously as he suddenly had a bad intuition when he saw the 2 stunningly beautiful figures next to the spirit transformation pond. As expected, their Lord Luoying and that maiden turned around. That maiden truly was Su Luo. It was the person on the wanted poster. Chapter 24:13. Surprise 5. As the Thorn Captain saw Su Luo, he saw their Lord Luoying too. Lord Luoying? Just from a look, the Thorn Captain and the others were stunned. No wonder why Lord Luoying always wore a mask. It was because he was too good-looking. Of course, with that beautiful face, how could he be thought of as imposing? It was only with the mask on that he had the power to intimidate. All of a sudden, the Thorn Captain's body stiffened and started shaking. He only just realized that he saw Lord Luoying's true identity. Lord Luoying had never shown his true identity. Even the Empress had never seen his face. It was rumored that anyone who saw Lord Luoying's face would be silenced forever. Oh, Lord Luoying, the originally arrogant Thorn Captain's entire body shook uncontrollably, as if he were sifting wheat. He couldn't even form a complete sentence. With an indifferent expression, Nangong Luoyuan swept a casual glance over him. The Thorn Captain's heart was beating like a drum. I just saw Lord Luoying's true identity. I'm going to get killed, am I not? I'm definitely going to get killed, right? The Thorn Captain's brain was running fast. He knew they were doomed, unless a miracle appeared. What should we do? What can we do? What are we going to do? The Thorn Captain looked around and met with Su Luo's eyes. The Thorn Captain witnessed the way Lord Luoying and Su Luo interacted. He quickly realized that this maiden, whom he'd chased down with murderous intent and placed in a pitiful situation where she had to flee, was a treasure to Lord Luoying. Desperate times called for desperate measures. The Thorn Captain swallowed his ego painfully and smiled to flatter Su Luo. Miss Su, I didn't realize you're friends with Lord Luoying. Thank goodness I didn't hurt you previously, or we'd become mortal enemies. Ha ha. Su Luo glanced at him with a smile and replied, Become enemies? Were we not already mortal enemies? The Thorn Captain was confused. Su Luo smiled and explained, Of course you didn't know, but I'm kind enough to inform you. Your 064 was not killed by Xiao Luo. It was me who did it. However, I used a concealment technique, so none of you knew. The whole Thorn team was silent at Su Luo's words. No one had even imagined there would be such a reason for that incident. They were indeed already mortal enemies. So how could they resolve this matter? Therefore, a most incredible situation was created. The murderer insisted on admitting she had committed the murder, yet the victim's side was doing their utmost to clear her of the charge. If this were to get out, people's jaws would drop to the ground. While the Thorn Captain was struggling, Su Luo suddenly changed the subject. Now, as we mentioned, it's really thanks to you, Thorn Captain. Oh, the Thorn Captain's eyes blinked in confusion. You might not know, but when you threw those 2 crystal pieces into the spirit transformation pond, I was at the bottom of the pond. With the light of those 2 crystal pieces, my light attribute advanced a lot. Remember my shadow cloning? It was able to advance thanks to those 2 crystal pieces of yours, Thorn Captain. Su Luo's voice was pleasant to hear. It was clear and smooth like beads falling on a jade plate. However, her voice was like a clap of thunder in a clear sky for the Thorn Captain's ears. He was completely dumbfounded. At that time, he threw those crystal pieces into the spirit transformation pond with the intention to utterly destroy them. Who could have imagined that this maiden had been hiding in the pond at that moment and ended up reaping such easy benefits? Nevertheless, the Thorn Captain let out a great sigh of relief. Fortunately for him, he had been oblivious to Su Luo's presence. If he had found her, he would have already killed this wench. If that were the case, would Lord Luoying still spare his life? He would be dead for sure. Chapter 24:14. Surprise 6. Su Luo shifted her cold gaze to the Thorn Captain and said slowly, I heard that your Empress has decreed a kill order for me. The Thorn Captain shot a glance at their Lord Luoying, who gave away nothing. The former broke out in a cold sweat and replied, That's correct. If that's the case, I can't blame you all for just following orders. Su Luo was unexpectedly capable of clearly separating her grudges and grievances from logic and reason. The Thorn Captain was caught off guard by Su Luo considering their feelings and being empathetic, but he was overjoyed nonetheless. It's fortunate we didn't injure you. Mississippi otherwise, I don't think I'll be able to disentangle myself from this. A small frown appeared on Nangong Liuyun's face. He understood Su Luo's intentions very well. She didn't want to kill innocent people. However, these people have already seen his real face and also knew of Su Luo and his connection with her. Therefore, they were fated to never return to Thorn again. Su Luo asked Nangong, How should we deal with these people so that they won't pose any threat to you? Nangong Liyun patted Su Luo's back. Ultimately, he was still most important in her heart. Knowing her intentions, Nangong Liuyun's heart felt light with joy. I think you should go to the spirit transformation pond. I'll deal with this. Nangong Liyun ushered Su Luo away like he was herding a duck. Then he took the Thorn Squad and left. Seeing Nangong Liyun's silhouette moving further and further away, Su Luo tilted her head and pondered briefly for a moment. Nevertheless, she still couldn't find a solution that worked for both sides no matter how much she contemplated it. and that left her slightly frustrated. Overwhelmed, Su Luo decided to simply push those thoughts out of her mind. Step by step, she waded into the spirit transformation pond. This was already her third time entering the spirit transformation pond. She had benefited a lot from both of her previous visits. The first time she entered, she rose to the level of searing light. During the second visit, she rose even further to the level of mirror cloning. Su Luo carefully placed the final 2 pieces of crystal fragments into the water. Very quickly, ripples disturbed the still surface in perfect rings and spread throughout the pool. Su Luo promptly crossed her legs and let her body sink to the bottom of the spirit transformation pond. Numerous bubbles appeared, forming layer upon layer around her. If someone were looking, they would notice that these bubbles were actually flying one by one into Su Luo's body, merging with her being. After a short while, something materialized in front of and behind Su Luo like a magic trick. Soon, more and more appeared all around her as Su Luo after Su Luo emerged out of thin air. There were so many indeed. 9, 19, 29. Eventually, the number of Su Luo's shadow clones had soared to 99. The throng of Su Luo clones almost filled up the entirety of the spirit transformation pond. Su Luo's eyelids twitched a little, but she did not open her eyes. Su Luo noticed that the energy within the 2 crystal fragments still had yet to be used up. Furthermore, all these shadow clones were just hollow shells. They had a dazzling outer appearance, but they would be immediately reduced to dust with just one bash. She was not satisfied with these fancy papier-mâché-like doppelgangers. Therefore, Su Luo took the opportunity to attempt merging 2 shadow clones into one with the remaining and use spiritual energy. At first, Su Luo merely wanted to give it a try. However, to her surprise, it was in that first attempt that she actually succeeded. After 2 hours of work, Su Luo finally reduced her 99 clones to 45. If the previous 99 shadow clones were considered as 5th rate, then the current 45 shadow clones could be considered 4th rate. Still, Su Luo was unsatisfied. Since there were 5 TH and 4th rate shadow clones, there had to be 3 RD-, 2 ND-, and 1st rate shadow clones too. Thus, Su Luo stepped up her efforts once again. 45 shadow clones were fused into 15 third-rate shadow clones. Chapter 24:15. Pleasant Surprise 7. 15 of them turned into 3. This was called second-rate shadow cloning. Lastly, 3 coalesced into a single one. This naturally was a first-rate shadow clone. At this moment, the first-class shadow clone and Su Luo sat side by side. The 2 people had the same facial features, the same demeanor, and even the same movements. This reminded Su Luo of the Genius Training Camp assessment, the 3rd level, with a shadow that had looked just like her and even had the same moves and martial arts. Su Luo's eyes suddenly flew open and burst with a gleam of light. She wanted to see if the strength of this shadow clone was truly that powerful. Just in the instant when Su Luo finished cloning and rose, the shadow clone also burst up. Her method of making a move was exactly the same as Su Luo's. And so, in the space above the spirit transformation pond, Su Luo began to fight with her own shadow clone. It had to be said that the strength of the shadow clone was much better than that of the shadow from the assessment's 3rd level. Furthermore, because it was the exact person of Su Luo, whether it was from her habitual way of thinking to her habitual way of movement, they were all exactly the same. Even the skills were an exact copy of Su Luo's. The 2 people fought intractably, and Su Luo became more and more excited as they clashed, until at last, the 2 stopped, panting. "So satisfying," Su Luo exclaimed. Although it had coalesced into a single one, this current shadow clone was still simply too perfect for Su Luo's appetite. Through the battle with the shadow clone, Su Luo was essentially like a spectator, observing all the mistakes she had made in the fight from up close. This kind of experience, this kind of fighting method, was very, very rare. It could be said that, with this shadow clone, Su Luo's future combat ability and experience would rise rapidly. Just at this time, Nangong Luyun arrived at a slow and calm pace. Su Luo's eyes flashed slightly as she gazed towards Nangong Luyun. Her shadow clone's eyes also shone slightly, gazing towards Nangong Luyun. Two people of the same appearance, same clothing and footwear, the same gaze, expression, and movements, and the same kind of intimacy. The two were even more alike than identical twins. Would Nangong Luyun fail to recognize her? Su Luo's mouth curled up a little, quite looking forwards to Nangong Luyun's performance. If he dared to pick the wrong person, Su Luo had not even let out two hee-hee when her forehead was knocked on by Nangong Luyun. What are you snorting for? Are you a little piglet? Nangong Luyun good-humoredly pinched her delicate cheeks. How did you recognize me so easily? Su Luo pointed at the shadow clone next to her. How come you didn't mistake her for me? Nangong Luyun glanced contemptuously at Su Luo, as if she were an idiot. Mistake her for you? This kind of thing won't happen to me. Tell me, how exactly could you recognize me? Su Luo held his arm, her entire person nearly hanging on to him. If it was based on the aura, the shadow clone was also her. Even if it was a clone of her, the body was still hers, so the aura would not be different. Does this still need recognition? Nangong Luyun poked at Su Luo's forehead nonchalantly. No need to see, no need to smell, no need to get closer, just with a glance I can tell. Su Luo, she found that this was truly too boring and waved her hand, putting away the shadow clone. That's right, did you deal with those few people? Su Luo tilted her small face, full of curiosity. How did you deal with them? Tell me. Su Luo shook his arm, pouting. The corners of Nangong Luyun twitched slightly, and he expressed without mercy, given your performance just now, this answer is for the time being confidential. Chapter 24:16, Parting 1. Hearing Nangong Luyun's words, Su Luo's mouth pouted, and she pushed him, unhappy. Su Luo's force was very gentle, more like she was tickling him. Nangong Luyun lightly laughed as he grabbed her hand and brought it into his embrace, pinching the tip of her nose insolently. Do you really want to know? Su Luo felt curious. Guess. Nangong Luyun teased her. Su Luo tilted her head and pondered for a moment. With your nature, if you were to kill them, you could just casually do so. You wouldn't take them far away. Could it be that they were sentenced to 100 years of imprisonment? Nangong Luyun's dashing one raised slightly. Su Luo did not look at him and continued to ponder. Imprisonment of 100 years could be used, but with this, the manpower of these few people would go to waste. I've got it. Su Luo's eyes suddenly brightened, gazing at Nangong Luyun. Did you guys send them to the extraterritorial battlefield? That was many tens of thousands of miles away, and we're in dire need of cannon fodder. So, sending these 4 people over there was the best way to deal with this. Nangong Luyun chuckled. His devastatingly beautiful face was radiant and full of pride. Quickly say it, is my guess right? Su Luo wrapped herself around Nangong Luyun's slender yet strong waist. Her small face tilted up with a touch of smugness in her eyes. Your guess can be counted as right. Although Nangong Luyun's expression appeared arrogant, the bottoms of his eyes were full of warm happiness. His Luo girl had always been the smartest. Whatever he was thinking or wanted to do, she was able to tell with just a glance. In this world, there would never be another Su Luo so intelligent and understanding of him. There was only one of her in this world. How could he not cherish her? Nangong Luyun's heart was so moved that both his arms tightened and wrapped around her fiercely. Su Luo was pressed tightly into his chest, and the air in her lungs was nearly squeezed out. Do you have to leave now? Su Luo lowered her voice. Nangong Luyun stood upright and tense. His silence, his forceful hug, they all proved that Su Luo's guess was right. Nangong Luyun indeed had to leave. Su Luo was very reluctant to let him go. She buried her face in his chest, muffling her voice. Truly couldn't bear to let him go. If he could always stay by her side, how nice would that be? Nangong Luoyun let out a long sigh. He had already been out for long enough. If he still didn't return, that woman would inevitably suspect something. I'll leave tomorrow. Nangong Luoyun patted Su Luo's slender spine, soothing her. So he was still leaving tomorrow? Su Luo's head rubbed back and forth against Nangong Luoyun's chest like a puppy. Nangong Luoyun smiled lightly. He was even more reluctant to part with her than she was, and, if possible, he would not want to leave her for a minute. I promise you, by the time you are promoted to Grandmaster Apothecary, I will definitely return to your side. After getting the Dark Heart and the Crystal Ball of Departed Souls, Nangong Luoyun was confident that within 6 months his strength would increase greatly. Then, can you come to see me once every month? Su Luo looked up, her big black and white eyes moist with a hint of expectation. Her fallen red lotus proved that being with Nangong Luoyun was effective, and although it could not yet cure the root cause, at the very least it could help relieve his pain. Just at the thought of him alone in the dark enduring the pain, Su Luo's heart found it extremely hard to bear. Nangong Luoyun stroked Su Luo's back, sighing lightly, and did not answer. The two people embraced each other. The time passed by little. No matter how much they couldn't bear it, the second day still arrived. By the time Su Luo woke up, Nangong Luoyun's figure was no longer by her side. Chapter 24:17. Parting 2. The corner of Su Luo's lips lifted to form a faint, bitter smile. When they would meet next remained unknown. At this moment, Su Luo, yet again, made a firm resolution in her heart she had to hurry up and reach the Grandmaster level of Apothecary. This was her promise to him. Su Luo was the only one remaining in the entire Temple of the Abyss. A month soon passed, and Su Luo was teleported out of there. Arriving back at the Genius Training Camp, Su Luo went to clear the mission. In the mission lobby, Su Luo met that youngster. The youngster looked arrogant and proud. As he was the one to post the mission back then, he was well aware it was due in a month. Thus, he arrived here early and waited. He wanted to deliver the good news to Fairy Wu Yu as soon as possible. The youngster waited and waited till the sky was about to turn dark. Looking up, he saw a stunning woman in a yellow dress standing in front of him. At this moment, she was looking at him with a grin. Her beautiful eyes were as sly as a little fox. The youngster's heart shook. He was well aware of who this woman was. Back then, he had tricked and trapped this woman called Su Luo. Why are you here? The youngster's face paled with fright. He almost jumped 3 feet into the air. Su Luo looked at him with a grin and asked calmly, "Why can't I be here? Didn't you die?" The youngster forcibly held off the urge to say the last word. "Didn't I die? This was what you wanted to ask, right?" Su Luo's lips curved into a devilishly cold grin. Did he think she would forgive and forget what he had done to her, just like that? The youngster was silenced by Su Luo's words. His chest bubbled with frustration, but his brain was thinking fast. The youngster mustered his courage and asked loudly, "Where are your teammates, eh? Eh?" He looked around Su Luo, but there was only her, which was very strange. Teammates. Su Luo's glance shot at the youngster coldly, like electricity. Teammates. Su Luo's cold gaze fell on the youngster like a zap of electricity. He intentionally switched her team members to Chu Yang and the others, who nearly killed her, and now he had the audacity to ask her where those people were. Dead. Su Luo dropped the word directly. No way. The youngster almost jumped up. How could he not know how powerful Chu Yang was? Moreover, when Chu Yang's subordinates worked together, even Fairy Wu Yu could not battle the 4 of them. Then, how could Su Luo survive? But the materials in his hands revealed that Su Luo ranked the 100th in the dragon list. The youngster locked his stare on Su Luo, trying to dig something out from her facial expression. The youngster carefully scrutinized Su Luo, as if trying to make out something from her face. However, Su Luo was calm and collected, without revealing a single clue on her face. Su Luo unhurriedly cast a look at him. "You can cancel the Eternal Heart mission now." She then turned around to leave. "Wait!" The youngster grabbed hold of Su Luo. However, Su Luo casually flung him off her arm and pushed him, causing him to trip. He staggered back, bumped into the table, and tipped it over. The youngster fell to the floor roughly. All sorts of papers from the table fell on his head, cutting an extremely sorry figure. Due to the noise, everyone started gathering around them. The youngster's face turned red from anger. He jumped up and yelled as he pointed at Su Luo's leaving figure. "Someone come arrest her. I suspect she murdered her teammates." The youngster's voice was powerful and eloquent. Soon, the troops stormed into the mission lobby. The corner of her lips lifted into an indifferent smile. This youngster was rather interesting. He knew Chu Yang and his people had tried to kill her, yet he turned around and said she had killed the teammates. He really did make the most of it. Chapter 24:18. Parting 3. Su Luo turned around and stared at the youngster. "Are you sure? False accusation is a serious crime, you know?" The youngster was startled for a second. Then he put on his brave face and shouted back, "I'm accusing you falsely? Ha ha ha. How am I accusing you falsely? You clearly killed Chu Yang and the others." The youngster liked to walk around like he owned the place on a daily basis because his grandfather was the manager of the mission hall. Now that Su Luo had provoked him, he threw his rationality right out the window. Very good. Su Luo liked where this was going. She was actually worried that he wouldn't make a scene. The more noise he made, the more the situation would work in her favor. "You not only made a false accusation, but also tampered with the content of the mission," Su Luo said in a righteous tone. "I did not," the youngster denied in a raised voice. Seeing that people had gathered around them, Su Luo let out a cold laugh and spat out the facts. "I originally picked a group with randomized members, but look who I ended up with. Who did you put on my team? Chu Yang, Lung Qi, Senior Sister Yu, and Xiao Luo. Would you call these 4 people random? Do you think we're all fools or that we're blind?" The youngster's throat closed up. He couldn't say a word. In Upstream Mountain, Su Luo was considered a newbie, but many of the other people present were not considered new. They had been interacting with each other for several decades, so how could they not know about the Chu Yang team? The spectators laughed with Su Luo. The youngster realized his lie was exposed. He got flustered and angry. It's not easy to get a random group. The 4 of them just happen to be missing one more person, so I sent you there. What's the problem with that? Even if there's a problem, it's only a small one. Su Luo smiled slightly. "So, do you also think it's a small problem if Chu Yang collaborated up with the Thorn?" "What did you just say?" The crowd gasped with shock. It's the iron law that Purgatory City would never see eye to eye with the Thorn. But Su Luo claimed that Chu Yang collaborated up with people from the Thorn? This was impossible. "Huh, you woman are abominable. You clearly planned and murdered Chu Yang along with everyone else in the team. And now you are framing him for conspiring with the Thorn." The youngster glared at Su Luo. Chu Yang truly did collude with the Thorn and was ultimately killed by them, colluded with the Thorn and was ultimately killed by them. Chu Yang would never collude with the Thorn. He's my friend. I would bet my life on it. "Oh, how would you bet your life on his integrity?" Su Luo looked at the youngster with a grin. She had set a huge trap and was waiting for the youngster to jump into it. "If Chu Yang colluded with the Thorn, you could take my head, but if you framed Chu Yang, your head is mine." The youngster pointed at Su Luo with determination in his voice. Someone had brought the youngster's grandfather to the scene in time to hear this. The old man's heart went cold. He instantly tried to stop him. "What nonsense! It's none of your business if Chu Yang colluded with the Thorn. The bet doesn't count." However, the youngster pushed his grandfather away and marched up to Su Luo. "Do you agree to this bet?" The youngster believed in Chu Yang. If Chu Yang went to kill Su Luo for points, why would he need to collude with the Thorn? He assumed Su Luo couldn't provide any evidence either, so he acted even more aggressively towards Su Luo. If he won this bet, ha ha ha, Fairy Wu Yu always saw Su Luo as a thorn in her side. When he took Su Luo's head, Fairy Wu Yu would definitely dote on him. The youngster, deep in his fantasy, pushed even harder and further on Su Luo. Chapter 24:19. Parting 4. Su Luo grinned at him and raised her eyebrows. since your grandfather doesn't want to bet, then let's forget about it. This matter ends here." Waving her hand, Su Luo began to leave. Her tightly clenched fists by her side, slightly unsteady steps, and accelerated pace visibly portrayed how nervous she was feeling at the moment. The youth, feeling all the more confident of his conjecture, loudly yelled to stop Su Luo in her tracks. "Stop!" But Su Luo unexpectedly hastened her pace even more. The youth bellowed furiously while pointing at the mission hall guards. "This person murdered her teammates and even slandered them. What the heck are you guys doing? Are you actually letting her go?" In light of the youth's fiery accusations, the guard captain immediately stopped Su Luo from leaving. "Stop there, Mississippi." Su Luo raised an eyebrow slightly. "Are you guys going to believe whatever he says?" Someone reported a problem. "Thus, it's our duty to handle the matter. I hope you will understand and forgive us, Mississippi." The guard captains had a pretty good attitude. The guard captain's abilities were very strong. Even the youngster's grandfather didn't have the power to order him around. Prompted by an impulse, Su Luo asked, "What is your name?" "Su Chong." The guard captain gave a clear and concise answer. "Great. When the city lord comes back, I will put in a few words of praise for you," Su Luo proclaimed casually. The guard captain was momentarily stunned by Su Luo's words. Compliment him in front of the city lord? That would simply be something out of a dream. He assumed that Su Luo was trying to bribe him. However, in reality, Su Luo really admired his neither servile nor overbearing attitude towards law enforcement. Su Luo sauntered unhurriedly to the youth and cast a cold glance at him. "Are you sure that you want to bet?" The boy sneered. "Let's bet. In accordance with the earlier stakes?" "Of course. Listen up. If Chu Yang colluded with the Thorn members, my head will be yours for the taking. However, if you are just framing Chu Yang, you must forfeit your own head." The youth sneered at Su Luo. "Do you dare to bet with your life? Words carry no weight. I'm afraid you won't honor the terms when you lose," Su Luo replied unhurriedly, luring the youngster step by step into her trap. With just one more step, the youth would be jumping into the trap by himself. This one step didn't even require any intervention from Su Luo, as the youth quickly took a piece of paper from table at the side and put it in writing on the spot. Furthermore, he even had his grandfather sign it. As for Su Luo, the person she was waiting for finally arrived at that moment. "What's with this gathering? Are you not working anymore?" An ice-cold voice came from the entrance of the mission hall. Everyone turned around to take a look. No way. The 8th elder had actually come in person. With his hands crossed behind his back, the 8th elder walked in slowly at a stable and steady pace. The youngster's grandfather hastily bowed respectfully and greeted the 8th elder. "8th elder." The youngster also hurriedly bowed in response. "Your grandson?" The 8th elder raised an eye towards the youngster's grandfather. Grandfather Wang hastily answered, "Yes, this is my grandson, Wang Xiaoyi." "Xiaoyi, quickly kneel down and kowtow one to the 8th elder." "No need," the 8th elder said with a wave of his hand. "What were you guys betting about earlier?" The 8th elder didn't greet Su Luo. Thus, no one was aware that he was actually on Su Luo's side. Grandpa Wang was just about to use this as an opportunity to terminate the bet. However, having seen through his grandfather's thoughts, Wang Xiaoyi quickly jumped out. "8th elder, you came at the right time. You are a man of high standing and impartiality. Would it be possible for you to be a witness for this bet?" In order to obtain Fairy Wu Yu's affection and attention, Wang Xiaoyi was even willing to resort to the extremes. Chapter 2420, Parting 5. The 8th elder had no interest in reading it and frowned solemnly. Nevertheless, he ultimately received the paper with reluctance and quickly skimmed through the black one. After he finished reading, the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. It turned out Su Luo had actually encountered such dangers just now. Why didn't she ask him for help? If she died just like this, then he would never get back his crystal ball of departed spirits. The more the 8th elder read, the darker his face got, and the stiffer his expression became. He even gave a harsh glare to Su Luo. Seeing this, the spectators suddenly reached a realization. Hadn't the eighth elder's disciple, Lan Yingyin, been killed by Su Luo personally? At that moment, many people felt worried and anxious for Su Luo, even squeezing out a drop of cold sweat on her behalf. With the eighth elder, Manager Wang Tu, and Wang Xiaoyi joining forces, it was likely that Su Luo would find it difficult to escape. The guard captain gazed at Su Luo with a hint of worry. The instant Wang Xiaoyi saw the eighth elder's expression, he felt his 90% certainty of succeeding had risen to 100%. He felt overjoyed, and thus eagerly passed the pen over. Eighth elder, just sign here in this blank space. There were a total of 5 copies. The eighth elder, Su Luo, the guard captain, Manager Wang, and Wang Xiaoyi each got 1 copy. After signing the agreement, Wang Xiaoyi immediately grew smug. He pulled out a document from an optical tablet and projected it onto a larger screen, and said proudly, Su Luo, Chu Yang, and the others were your teammates this time for the Temple of the Abyss, right? Su Luo replied emotionlessly. Then what about now? Where are they? Dead. Su Luo's voice was indifferent. The youngster pointed at Su Luo, filled with justifiable rage. They originally intended to go to the magical beast zone to do missions, but just in order to form a team with you, they ultimately decided to go to the Temple of the Abyss. However, Su Luo, how could you scheme to murder them? Su Luo sneered, her voice carrying a trace of ridicule. What proof do you have that I was the one who caused their deaths? Based on the fact they all died, but you, on the other hand, are still alive. The youngster glared at Su Luo angrily. In terms of strength, Chu Yang is much stronger than you, but why did he die? Why did all his teammates die, and only you survived? Su Luo, I hope you can give everyone a reasonable explanation for this. Everyone expressed agreement, with Wang Xiaoyi's words one after another. The team went out to complete a mission, but it resulted in the 4 strong ones all dying, leaving only the weakest one alive. This didn't make sense, no matter how one looked at it. And so at this time, everyone felt emotionally biased towards Wang Xiaoyi. Wang Xiaoyi was beyond delighted. He was certain that Su Luo would not be able to find evidence to rebut this. The eighth elder swept a sullen gaze towards Su Luo and spoke with an icy voice. Killing a teammate is punishable by hanging. I'm afraid this sentence of being hanged will have to be left for someone else instead. Su Luo's voice was indifferent and calm. Su Luo, could it be that you still refuse to confess even now? You should know, confession shall be dealt with leniency, but denial shall be dealt with severity. Wang Xiaoyi shouted in anger. Su Luo smiled. Have you not heard of a saying? Confession shall be dealt with leniency, and be jailed for life. Denial shall be dealt with severity, and you can be home before New Year's carrot. The youngster was stunned for a brief moment. Su Luo lightly laughed again. Either way, it wasn't me who did bad things. So what do I have to hide? After saying that, Su Luo pulled out a pomelo-sized crystal ball from her sleeves and placed it onto the table. What is this? Everyone inquired one after another. One of them had a keen eye and quite a wealth of knowledge, and shouted out, This thing looks a bit like the memory crystal from the legends, the one that can be picked from the ancient crystal tree, he said while looking at Su Luo with incredulity. Chapter 24-21 Parting 6. There were rumors that the auction house had recently auctioned off a near-death ancient crystal tree for the lowest price ever. This memory crystal fruit couldn't have been born from that tree, could it? Impossible, impossible, absolutely impossible. That ancient crystal tree was on the brink of death. Even if it were a normal ancient crystal tree, it definitely would not be able to produce this type of fruit without 10 years of effort. This is a memory crystal fruit. Su Luo's faint voice carried a hint of chilliness to it. Whatever Chu Yang did is all recorded clearly in here. Do you guys want to see? After saying this, Su Luo went to the extent of sweeping a meaningful glance at Wang Xiaoyi from the corners of her eyes. Su Luo never treated her friends unfairly, but she also never let off her enemies. Just for Fairy Wuyo, Wang Xiaoyi had secretly swapped the missions, causing Su Luo to almost die in the Temple of the Abyss. Due to this, Su Luo wouldn't let off Wang Xiaoyi no matter what. Being gazed at through Su Luo's peripheral vision, Wang Xiaoyi shuddered inside. That couldn't be possible? Could Chu Yang really have colluded with members of the Thorn? Or could it be that this devious girl was just bluffing? With just one glance at this matter, Manager Wang knew his grandson was in hot waters this time. Thus, he quickly followed up with a smile. Everyone has heard of memory crystal fruits, but hasn't seen it before. Who knows if yours is real or fake? Just forget about it. Su Luo raised her eyebrows and looked at Wang Xiaoyi provokingly, with the corners of her lips curling upwards. Wang Xiaoyi became flabbergasted, and he suddenly asked the eighth elder, if the things in here proves that it was fake, could it be possible to raise the severity of the punishment by another notch, such as death without an intact corpse? The eighth elder's cold gaze shot towards him, frightening Wang Xiaoyi into instinctively jumping a step backwards. Seeing that, the eighth elder gave a cold snort, but nodded anyway. I would rather like to see exactly how Chu Yang colluded with the Thorn members. Wang Xiaoyi was full of confidence because he was very clear. After Chu Yang's father had died to the Thorn, he would never collaborate with members of the Thorn. Thus, as long as he proved that the evidence within was false, then Su Luo would be dead for sure. He wanted Su Luo dead. Thus, the memory crystal fruit was uploaded onto the optical tablet. Soon, a full video clip showed up on the big screen behind. The visual in the clip was Chu Yang negotiating with black-clothed members of the Thorn, and it even included the audio of their voices. The content of their discussion was very clear. It was about how to team up together to murder Su Luo, and even how to chase her to death was clearly planned out. Su Luo wore an indifferent expression. However, Wang Xiaoyi's body trembled. How could this be? How could Chu Yang be colluding with the Thorn members? And he even mentioned Fairy Wuyo, and also mentioned that it was him, Wang Xiaoyi, who had purposely assigned the wrong mission. This was impossible. Impossible. Wang Xiaoyi's body wavered for a moment. What did this mean? It meant that he had smashed a rock on his own foot, ending up harming himself. It was him, Wang Xiaoyi, who had insisted on betting with Su Luo, and insisted that Su Luo play the recording in the memory crystal fruit. This is fake. It is certainly fake. Definitely fake. Chu Yang and others, those four would have been enough to kill Su Luo. How could they have requested for outside reinforcements? Wang Xiaoyi charged up and grabbed the memory crystal fruit with one hand, fiercely slamming it onto the ground. The memory crystal fruit shattered into fragments. At that moment, Su Luo, who had kept her gaze on Wang Xiaoyi, sneered, finally admitting that you deliberately arranged Chu Yang and the others to come and kill me. Wang Xiaoyi insisted stubbornly, I didn't admit it. Su Luo gave a faint smile. Want me to take out my memory crystal fruit from back when the mission was accepted? Su Luo's right fist opened up, and soon after, another memory crystal fruit appeared in her palm. Truthfully, although the visuals in the recording just now were correct, the audio had been edited on. It was Nangong Liyun who had helped her with it, which was why other people could not tell a difference. Looking at the memory crystal fruit in Su Luo's hands, Wang Xiaoyi shrank back. Chapter 24-22. Parting 7. Now, he was certain that Su Luo recorded it. If the memory crystal fruits in Su Luo's possession were revealed to the public, the matter of him and Chu Yang colluding to frame Su Luo would be investigated. The punishment for framing your teammates was especially harsh in the genius training camp. Wang Xiaoyi pounced on Su Luo, snatched the memory crystal fruit from her unguarded hands, and smashed it into smithereens. Once the evidence was destroyed, Wang Xiaoyi felt relieved. He looked at Su Luo smugly and laughed triumphantly. Su Luo, now let's see what else you can use to slander me. Su Luo simply wished to leave him a 1-star review on his IQ. She curved her lips calmly. Wang Xiaoyi, the 8th elder is present here as a witness. For you to purposefully destroy the evidence right in front of him, Are you taking the eighth elder to be an idiot or a blind person? Her one sentence pinned Wang Xiaoyi as guilty. Wang Xiaoyi's heart skipped a beat. He was too used to being arrogant to even take a hint of caution. He peeked at the eighth elder. The eighth elder indeed looked most displeased. But so what? The evidence is gone anyway. What more can Su Luo do to me at this point? Wang Xiaoyi thought. Glancing at Wang Xiaoyi with a mocking gaze, Su Luo derided him. My tree has plenty of memory crystal fruits on. It's not difficult for me to produce a few more. Su Luo opened her palm, where another memory crystal fruit appeared. All smiles, she directly stuffed the memory crystal fruit into the eighth elder's hand. It would be best if the memory crystal fruit was in the eighth elder's care. Wang Xiaoyi almost fainted with anger. This damn Su Luo. No wonder she had so casually let me destroy the evidence. It turned out she had another copy. Darn it. Su Luo pulled out another copy of the memory crystal fruit and gave it to the eighth elder. This copy contains a first-hand account of Wang Xiaoyi's words when he just received the mission irrefutable evidence. Wang Xiaoyi trembled from head to toe. Oh no, oh no, oh no. This time, I'm truly done for. However, how could Wang Xiaoyi possibly know that Su Luo was actually bluffing? He didn't even use his head. If Su Luo had already been suspicious when receiving the mission, why would she choose to go through with it and put herself in a fatal situation? In fact, the crystal fruit containing Wang Xiaoyi's video was completely fabricated. Su Luo lied about its existence. However, because Su Luo had already played a video of Chu Yang, everyone unconsciously thought that Su Luo also recorded Wang Xiaoyi. This was a blind spot of memory. Wang Xiaoyi stared at the paper in his hand. The black font on the white paper stated everything. He wished he could tear the paper into pieces at this instant. He clutched the eighth elder's legs and implored him. What's inside the memory crystal fruit is not real. It's not real. It's not real. Kicking Wang Xiaoyi away, the eighth elder glanced coldly at him. The evidence in the memory crystal fruit is an undeniable proof of Chu Yang's collusion with the thorn. It's a crime deserving of 1,000 deaths. As for Wang Xiaoyi's case, everyone's eyes zeroed in on the eighth elder as they waited for his final decision. If the eighth elder had to pick one among Fairy Wuyo and Wang Xiaoyi, he would definitely choose Fairy Wuyo. The evidence is conclusive that Wang Xiaoyi colluded with Chu Yang to frame Su Luo. As such, in accordance with the agreement established between Su Luo and Wang Xiaoyi, the defeated party will be executed in 3 days. Wang Xiaoyi's body shook as he slumped onto the floor. Grandpa Wang beseeched the eighth elder bitterly to no avail before turning to Su Luo. Su Luo grinned coldly and said, Wang Xiaoyi is not the mastermind behind all this. Naturally, if he can find out who the real mastermind is, he will not have to die. At this critical juncture of life and death, what would Wang Xiaoyi do? After Su Luo left, Wang Xiaoyi ran to find Fairy Wuyo. Chapter 24-23. Questioning 1. Fairy Wuyo had already known about this long ago. Yet she was still beyond furious when she saw Wang Xiaoyi looking for her. So she showed Wang Xiaoyi no mercy. 3 days later, Wang Xiaoyi's body was found in the magical beast zone. After receiving the news, Su Luo was silent for a moment. Then the corners of her mouth raised into a cold, nonchalant smile. By disposing of Wang Xiaoyi in this way, was Fairy Wuyo unafraid of others thinking coldly of her? Wang Xiaoyi had done those things for her after all. However, Su Luo couldn't care less at the moment. She had more important things to do. Although Su Luo dealt with Wang Xiaoyi, it was not that no one had any criticisms towards her. There are not many people in the upstream mountain to start with. In an instant, 5 people that involved themselves with Su Luo were lost. For people from Chu Yang's side and Wang Xiaoyi, the death of these 5 champions will be impossible to leave unnoticed regardless of the true story. Hence, the rumors spiraled. When she came back, Su Luo first returned her massive wealth of points to the 6th elder, then checked Ziyin and the others' abilities. 1 month of training in the gravity chamber was worth several years of experience outside. Thus, Xian and the others progressed rapidly. She and Beichening had already reached 3-star commander rank. The progress of Anya and Lan Xian was even more remarkable. They had now hit the peak of the 10th rank and were just short of being able to enter the commander rank. However, in the upstream mountain, where there were Saint rank powerhouses all over, their strengths were still much too weak. Since Su Luo had made many enemies here, she was afraid that Fairy Wuyo would make moves towards Yi Yin and the others. The only way out was to put them in the gravity chamber. This way, they could avoid the risk of encountering Fairy Wuyo while advancing their skills. Su Luo counted the points in her hand. Earlier, she had spent a day with Nangong Lu Yun in the magical beast area and scored a bounty of points. In addition, she later teamed up with Flame Magical Beast and easily collected more than 300 million points. Subtracting recent expenditures, Su Luo still had more than 300 million points at her disposal. Beichening and the 3 of them, plus Big Sister Wei. That's 5 of them in total. Each month, they would need 50 million points. Su Luo looked at the sky. She had thought she was already very rich. Nonetheless, who would know that those points she had before could only pay for 6 or 7 months of cultivation for the 5 of them? The gravity chamber was too good at swallowing points. Su Luo's heart ached a little, but she still happily paid 6 months' worth of points for them. 50 times 6. 300 million points slipped through Su Luo's fingers. But Su Luo was looking forward to seeing how much stronger her friends would be in that time period. Only Su Luo would make such a bold move, pouring in all her points to pile up their strength. Returning to Wuchen Mountain, Su Luo heard the rumors through Li Man. After Li Man used Su Luo's spirit absorption pill and went through the marrow cleansing process, she jumped from her original 1-star saint rank to the 2nd-star saint rank. Senior brother Luo Qing and the others also broke through their cultivation blockages and were promoted by a rank. Although it was only 1 rank, realistically, it was very difficult to advance that much at their level. Not everyone could rise as quickly as Su Luo. Li Man muttered to Su Luo, "Why didn't you go participate in this month's assessment?" "What's wrong?" Su Luo asked, unconcerned. "Now everyone is questioning your strength. On top of that, the upstream mountain lost 5 masters at once, and they were all connected to you. This caused the higher-ups to have a very poor impression of you." Chapter 24-24, Questioning 2. Su Luo felt exasperated. She had clearly acted in reasonable self-defense without devious reasons. Yet the result now was that the blame was being placed on her again. Li Man continued to say to Su Luo, "The rumors outside are very unfavorable to you now, and there are organized groups that intend to drive you out of the upstream mountain. What's more, back then when you entered, it was senior brother Luo that brought you in. Now, that senior brother Luo is not here, you will suffer a lot without any powerful person to speak out for you. The most important thing is that back then when you came in, you didn't go through the assessment." In other words, up until now, Su Luo was still a supernumerary character. If someone wanted to kick her out, it was but a matter of minutes, truly too easy. Just at this time, Su Luo frowned slightly because she heard a mess of footsteps. Boom! The gate was opened by force. A squad of 20 people rushed in like wolves and surrounded Su Luo. Looking at these guards in uniforms, Li Man was on alert in an instant and stood in front of Su Luo, yelling, "Who are you people? What do you want to do?" The guard captain pushed Li Man to the side with one hand. On his angular face, his cold eyes were like 2 sharp swords, viciously stabbing at Su Luo. "Su Luo, right? Come with us." Su Luo had a bad feeling. However, since the matter had come to this point, even if it was a sea of flames, she had to barge through it. "Who wants to see me?" Su Luo's voice was calm. The guard captain glanced at Su Luo with an indifferent expression. "The Elder Association. Cut the nonsense. Let's go." After saying that, the guard captain signaled with his eyes to the left and right. 2 people in the team sprung out, going straight to the left and right of Su Luo. Su Luo's two icy eyes swept over them. Those two people were terrified and subconsciously did not step forward. Don't bother. I can walk by myself. Su Luo had no idea whether she would meet a blessing or a curse this time. If it was a curse, then she couldn't avoid it. She had to make a trip. Anyway, she was open, honest, and had not done anything wrong. So who was afraid of whom? Let's go. Su Luo looked normal, calm, but terrifying. She instead took the lead to walk outside. The guard leader was, on the other hand, deceived by Su Luo's straightforward behavior. A glimmer of appreciation flashed in his eyes. Luo, Luo. Li Man Man grabbed Su Luo's sleeves, looking nervous and perturbed. Absolutely don't force yourself to act strong. If all else fails, use your identity. Li Man Man personally had confirmed that Su Luo's diamond token was real, which meant that Su Luo was indeed sent in by the city lord. Don't worry, it's just a trivial matter. You all should practice hard at home and wait for me to come back to take you out to surprise people with your skills. Su Luo smiled and patted her hand before turning around and leaving. Su Luo knew that this time things would not be that simple. Why would matters that had already subsided make waves again? There was no need to guess. There must be someone stirring up trouble behind the scenes. As for who that person behind was, Su Luo thought that anyone unable to guess who this person was the fool here. There was a route from Senior Brother Luo's manor to the Elder's Hall that would not take particularly long or extend far. However, because she had the golden airship, it took less than 4 hours to fly to the destination. The golden airship landed steadily on the road. The guard captain gazed at the girl who looked calm and had her eyes closed during the whole journey. A dash of admiration flashed through his eyes. When he passed by her, he whispered, "Fifth Elder." Chapter 24-25, Questioning 3. Su Luo slowly opened her eyes. Her animated eyes flashed with streams of light, swept over him, and whispered, "Many thanks." The 3 words, "the fifth elder," already revealed a lot of information. When Su Luo swept a glance over the guard leader from the corners of her eyes, a light blush lightly appeared on his cold and rigid face. He had been in the genius training camp since he was born, but had never seen such a beautiful girl. Thus, when he was looked at with such intent, he subconsciously felt a little shy. The guard captain coughed and pretended as if nothing was wrong. "Do you need help?" Su Luo thought for a while. She did need help, and so she spoke to the guard leader. "Please help me to inform the 6th elder of the Pill Refining Tower to come." Su Luo had tried to notify the 6th elder on the way. However, because the 6th elder was busy in the laboratory for years and years, therefore the communication jade had just become a piece of decoration. The guard captain was only asking politely. He didn't expect Su Luo to really ask for his help. "You trust me?" His eyes were full of surprise. Su Luo nodded with a light smile. "Yes, I trust you. I believe that a guy who blushes when he sees a girl can't be that bad. No matter how bad he is." The guard leader did not know that Su Luo added that sentence inside her head. Knowing Su Luo placed her trust in him, he solemnly nodded, "I will help you." The guard captain had also seen Fairy Wu Yu, who was certainly beautiful. However, he disliked her lustful indulgence from the bottom of his heart. He felt that, compared to the beautiful girl in front of him, Fairy Wu Yu was nothing short of trash. He really couldn't understand how those men were blinded and kept going for her. This problem had bothered the guard captain for so many years, but has never been solved. After sending Su Luo into the Elder's Hall, the guard captain personally took the trip for Su Luo. As for Su Luo, at this moment, she was standing in the middle of the Elder's Hala place that was spacious and bright, floored with ancient sunken wood and decorated with understated noble elegance and luxurious splendor. After the guards brought Su Luo in, they filed out and left undisturbed, leaving Su Luo standing alone here. Suddenly, Su Luo felt that her mind was gradually becoming a little heavier. No, it's not right. The phantom cold rosemary. It was actually this kind of incense being burned in the hall. Very few people knew that the phantom cold rosemary had a hallucinogenic function. When Su Luo followed Master Rong Yun learning to refine medicine, reading books all day long, and reading all the rare books, she obtained a wide range of knowledge. Thus, she immediately recognized it. The phantom cold rosemary, when inhaled in excess, would not only cause psychedelia, but also make the person excited, especially encouraged to talk. Even if the mouth were gagged, it wouldn't stop people from talking, an excellent means of extracting confessions. The phantom cold rosemary, after being lit, unless the incense burned out completely, even if it was soaked in water, it could not be extinguished. Now in the hall, the doors and windows were closed, the air was trapped inside, and the smell of the phantom cold rosemary was getting stronger and stronger. This was a deadlock. A sneer flashed under Su Luo's eyes. The other party thought they had a scheme in play. So, even though Su Luo had already seen the key plot, she still had to follow the steps designed by the other side to go along with the other party's scheme. The corner of Su Luo's mouth evoked a sly sneer. Using the phantom cold rosemary on her, a quasi-grandmaster apothecary, they were really not afraid of being embarrassed. Chapter 24-26 Interrogation 4. With a sweep of her hand, Su Luo showered it with a top-grade celestial spirit water like a heavy downpour of rain. The fragrant incense pot was instantly extinguished by the top-grade celestial spirit water. That's right. The top-grade celestial spirit water was the nemesis of the phantom cold rosemary. At this moment, though the elders were not present in the hall, they could nevertheless see this scene in the hall clearly through the crystal ball. When the fifth elder saw Su Luo spray out the water, he snickered, overestimating your abilities. Nevertheless, who would have thought that the moment Su Luo made a move, the phantom cold rosemary incense would actually be extinguished? The fifth elder's snicker had yet to fade when his face stiffened like iron, utterly dumbfounded like someone had walked up and slapped him. Coming back to his senses, he flew into a rage out of humiliation. The phantom cold rosemary was the work he prided in most. He was confident that no one could solve it except himself. Who would have thought that Su Luo would easily break it with a wave of her hand? Looking at the fifth elder's choked-up appearance, the eighth elder suddenly couldn't help but break into laughter. Old fifth, it seems that your abilities aren't that great. The fifth elder glared viciously at the eighth elder. What the hell do you know? The eighth elder stroked a white beard on his chin. I might not know squat, but can you admit that you don't know squat as well? The fifth elder went ballistic, wishing to cross swords with the eighth elder at the very moment. The fourth elder pulled the two elders apart, one to the left and one right. What are you doing? Let's stop the fuss. Calm down. You're both at this age, yet still so impulsive. In the genius training camp, the fourth elder was well regarded and quite respected by everyone. Oomph. The fifth elder waved his sleeve heavily and turned around with a huff. Since the phantom cold rosemary incense has been extinguished, there is no need to wait any longer. Someone, bring that girl up here. The fourth elder's expression became serious. When Su Luo was escorted up into the room, she found it to be an ordinary room. However, the people seated in the room were anything but ordinary. The fifth elder, Li Luo Ming's master. The seventh elder, Fairy Wu Yu's master. The eighth elder, whose soul was under Su Luo's control. There was also a fair-skinned, bearded elder with a face of righteousness. As to whether he was really righteous, Su Luo could not tell at the moment. These four elderly men were seated in a row with a long log table in front of them. Meanwhile, Su Luo calmly stood alone in front of them, allowing them to evaluate her. At this moment, Su Luo actually felt like she was being interviewed. State your name. The fifth elder stared at Su Luo with a cold sneer. His malice was clear as day. His stance was clear. He was against Su Luo. Su Luo. Who is your teacher? Rong Yun. Su Luo smiled faintly. Grandmaster Rong Yun? The fifth elder almost jumped high in the air when he heard that. You're lying. The fifth elder slapped the table and roared angrily. Master Rong Yun doesn't even accept attendance. Why would he accept an apprentice? Su Luo looked at the fifth elder with a grin and shrugged nonchalantly. How do you know that my master isn't accepting attendance anymore? Could it be that the fifth elder has applied to be my master's attendant? Fifth elder. His throat felt like it was being pinched. His face turned red and then white, colored by both embarrassment and anger. He was the overseer of the pill refining tower in the majestic Purgatory City, yet he failed to get enlisted as Master Rong Yun's attendant, certainly a matter worthy of shame. Momentarily, he was left speechless with anger. Su Luo glanced at the fifth elder. Displeased, she dropped a sentence with a frown. What is there to be ashamed of? My master's attendance must be at least at the grandmaster level. It's only natural that you weren't accepted for the job. Chapter 24-27. Interrogation 5. The fifth elder felt as though he had been given a vicious slap, leaving him tittering in his anger. His eyes turned bloodshot as he glared at Su Luo. If not for the shred of intelligence left in his fuming mind, he would have already rushed over in utter fury. The fourth elder tugged at the fifth elder's sleeve to signal to him to keep quiet. Are you sure that your master is Grandmaster Rong Yun? The fourth elder calmly looked at Su Luo. Grandmaster Rong Yun was the unanimous first place among all apothecaries in the continent, and any emperor pills refined by him would cause everyone to rush in a mad frenzy to obtain them. Furthermore, not only was Grandmaster Rong Yun exceedingly distinguished in his achievements as an apothecary, he was also an expert that could match up to the city lord in terms of martial arts. Who would dare to offend him? Now, this last Su Luo was actually saying that she's Grandmaster Rong Yun's disciple. How would people dare believe her? Yes. Su Luo moved about in a carefree manner, her hands crossed behind her back as she proudly stood up. If not for the presence of a strong backing, the calm and proud manner she was able to maintain before the group of elders would indicate that she did not fear anyone at all. The seventh elder swirled his steaming cup of fragrant tea and took a gulp before speaking on in a slow manner. Since Grandmaster Rong Yun is your master, why do you still want to come to Purgatory City? Could it be that you're unaware that City Lord and Grandmaster Rong Yun are irreconcilable enemies? The corners of the seventh elder's eyes rose to form an ambiguous smile as he swept a thoughtful glance at Su Luo. His eyes were filled with ridicule, as though he had already determined that she was lying. My master had indeed not wanted for me to come over. Su Luo recalled the situation then. Oh, the seventh elder dragged out his response. However, my adoptive father was adamant on me coming to Purgatory City. Furthermore, my master lost a bet to my adoptive father, so I headed over here. In an honest recount, Su Luo's words were the truth, with not one bit of a lie present within. However, the few elders present here clearly did not believe her. Purgatory City was cut off from the outside world, with its citizens being severely restricted from traveling across the continent without any special extenuating reasons. Therefore, the citizens of Purgatory City did not know about the penultimate fight that occurred. Moreover, these few elders were not one bit interested in the matters of the continent, as they felt that the people over there were akin to weak ants, leaving them utterly clueless to the happenings in the outside world. Therefore, the elders exchanged smiles with each other after hearing that Grandmaster Rong Yun had lost. In fact, the seventh elder had a beaming smile on his face as he looked towards Su Luo. So Grandmaster Rong Yun actually lost? Having finished his question, the seventh elder sipped on his fragrant tea to soothe his throat. My adoptive father is the city lord. Su Luo subconsciously revealed this explosive news. Her reply was quick, with a tone one would use when saying a fact. However, puff, the seventh elder violently spurted out the tea in his mouth. Fortunately, Su Luo managed to duck in time to prevent her face from being covered in tea. Su Luo was instantly displeased as she shouted out loudly, "Seventh elder, you're attempting murder." The seventh elder always held himself with grace and poise, so how could he tolerate his ungraceful action? Furthermore, him being chastised by Su Luo in front of everyone caused him to fill up with so much anger. His eyes turned round. You wretched lass! Of anyone you could involve in your proclamation, you actually dare to pass yourself off as Sir City Lord's adopted daughter. You're really tossing your life away. The seventh elder roared as he rushed forward to mete out justice against Su Luo. Nevertheless, the fourth elder held on to the seventh elder's shoulders. Old seventh, calm down. Don't be impulsive. While doing so, the fourth elder's mind was still submerged in dizzying confusion. The disciple of Grandmaster Rong Yun, the adopted daughter of the city lord. If those two identities were real, it was more than sufficient to cause chaos across the entire continent. Chapter 24-28. Interrogation 6. The fourth elder frowned. This girl's rapid improvement in refining pills was a clear demonstration that she was indeed brilliant, so whether she truly was Grandmaster Rong Yun's disciple was certainly open to debate. However, the fourth elder refused to believe that she was the city lord's adopted daughter, because he knew that what annoyed the city lord the most was the mundane world. He couldn't stand meeting with people and was extremely distant overall. If the city lord truly welcomed an adopted daughter, the fourth elder swore that he would chomp down on the table in front of him right there and then. He questioned Su Luo. What proof do you have? What proof do you want? Su Luo's tone was as unperturbed and unexcited as it was at the beginning. The fourth elder glanced in Su Luo's direction inadvertently, in slight admiration. In front of the four of them, she did not show timidness nor arrogance. She was also neither too overbearing nor too servile. Rather, she acted calm and collected, a rare occurrence for someone so young. Prove that you are a disciple of Grandmaster Rong Yun, the fourth elder said. Su Luo smiled as her gaze fell on the fifth elder. The fifth elder can prove it for me. The fifth elder angrily smacked the table. Nonsense! How can I prove it for you? How about I prove that you're a swindling fiend? Su Luo slowly approached the fifth elder, holding eye contact and a cheeky grin. Fifth elder, you have seen it with your own eyes, and my pill refining skill is better than yours. Why you? The fifth elder's boiling rage turned his face ashen. The taste of that medicinal cauldron. I guess it wasn't too bad? Su Luo asked. Bang! The fifth elder slammed his fist on the long table. A hole had broken through the piece of furniture from the impact. The fourth elder took a hint and silently looked away. Previously, he had heard that the fifth elder had lost a bet to that girl, Su Luo. He would not have guessed that it was true. The fifth elder's attitude on the matter was sufficient proof of Su Luo's pill refining skill. She was already a quasi-Grandmaster class apothecary at such a young age. Only Grandmaster Rong Yun could teach and raise someone to that level. Su Luo is Grandmaster Rong Yun's disciple. Of this there is no doubt. However, since you're Grandmaster Rong Yun's disciple, you definitely can't also be the city lord's adopted daughter. The seventh elder sat there in a composed manner, yet his eyes were cold and hostile. Everyone knows that the city lord and Grandmaster Rong Yun get along like water and fire. How could he take Grandmaster Rong Yun's disciple in as his adopted daughter? One after another, the elders nodded their heads in agreement. Su Luo smiled yet again, took out the diamond token, and dangled it before the company. How would you explain this diamond token then? The fourth elder took it and carefully inspected it. His expression changed drastically. During the second of attention, the seventh elder gave the diamond token. His gaze flickered in its direction, and he snorted. If I remember correctly, the city lord gave out several diamond tokens back then, right? Indeed, the fourth elder nodded. During the magical beast invasion long ago, several outstanding people contributed greatly to the cause. The city lord gave out 3 diamond tokens to them as a reward. Many years have passed since then, and those 3 diamond tokens are now unaccounted for. Miss Su, where exactly did you get this diamond token? The fourth elder frowned while saying the last sentence. Su Luo seemed amused when she replied, You guys don't believe me? I only blame you for lying so recklessly and with so many flaws. It is easy to tell that you cannot be trusted, the seventh elder scoffed. If you really were adopted by the city lord, why didn't he tell us elders about it? Su Luo remembered that her master had advised her not to reveal her identity, saying it was better that way. Presently, since these people did not believe her, Su Luo could not be bothered to continue with this nonsense. Chapter 24-29, Interrogation 7. You guys don't have to believe it if you don't want to. You'll face the consequences when the city lord returns. Su Luo said, expressing her disapproval. The seventh elder was so angry that he almost jumped up. Who did this brat think she was? How dare she spew such harsh words? Good. We'll see how the city lord will come back and expose you. Little liar. The seventh elder sneered. You know, the consequence for impersonating the city lord's relative is for your entire family to be one. Don't worry. He won't do that unless he wants to exterminate himself as well. Su Luo spoke eloquently, not giving in to the seventh elder in the slightest. It angered the seventh elder to the point of jumping up again. At this time, the fourth elder glared at Su Luo seriously. Miss Su, don't repeat this again once you've exited the door. Otherwise, even this old man won't be able to protect you. The fourth elder didn't believe that Su Luo was related to the city lord, but thinking that she might be Grandmaster Rong Yun's disciple, he was a little more polite towards Su Luo. Su Luo smiled lightly and did not express an opinion on what the fourth elder said. Instead, she asked, if there's nothing else, am I free to go? Su Luo turned around to leave after finishing her sentence. Wait, the seventh elder called out to Su Luo. What kind of place do you think this is that you can come and go whenever you want? I didn't wish to come here. Su Luo muttered. The elders were greatly skilled, so they naturally heard it clearly. The seventh elder glared at Su Luo. He had seen many people and had raised more than just one or two disciples, but he had never seen such an unruly, difficult to tame, and sharp-tongued brat like Su Luo. The main difference was that other students knew to revere the elders. Only Su Luo seemed to have no fear because she had something to rely on, instead, looking at them like someone looking at their domestic slaves. Pui Pui too. The seventh elder hurriedly squeezed that sudden thought out of his head. What domestic slaves? They were clearly elders who were mighty and imposing. Okay? So, the more the seventh elder looked at Su Luo, the more he disliked her, and the more he thought of making things difficult for her. The seventh elder trailed a long tone and looked at Su Luo coldly. Because of you, 5 students with excellent potential died in Upstream Mountain, and you have nothing to say? What does the seventh elder want me to say? Su Luo glanced away indifferently. The seventh elder was furious and smacked the table heavily. Su Luo, do you believe that I can kill you immediately just because of this attitude of yours? If you dare try to kill me, you will be the one who will be killed when my adoptive father returns. Su Luo laughed coldly. The seventh elder was extremely angry. You still want to impersonate his relative. Whether it's an impersonation or not, we'll know when my adoptive father returns. Su Luo had a casually relaxed expression. The several elders glanced at each other. With Su Luo acting so fearlessly because she had someone to rely on, who could really be sure that Su Luo was impersonating? Perhaps the city lord had a lapse of judgment. Pui 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 too. The several elders hit themselves on the head in succession. The fourth elder saw that the seventh elder and Su Luo got hostile with each other the more they spoke. So he simply took over. Su Luo. Those 5 people were all in the top 100 of the dragon list. Each one of them was a treasure of the Upstream Mountain and not people who could die in vain like that. Do you understand? Are you saying that you want to use my life to pay for that? Su Luo lightly threw out this line. Not so much as paying back with your life, since you have already proved your innocence, as evidenced by the 8th elder. The 4th elder looked grave and stern as he said resolutely, but if you still want to stay in Upstream Mountain, you must prove your own strength. Otherwise, we can only ask you to leave voluntarily. On a normal day, leaving would be fine. It wasn't as if Su Luo couldn't stay in the midstream mountain. She could go there and proclaim her rule as the strongest. However, the problem was that Su Luo had already brought Ziyin and the other three over. The gravity chamber was so important to their cultivation. How could I leave just because they said so? Chapter 2430, Interrogation 8. And how should I prove it? Su Luo coldly spat out. The seventh elder and the fifth elder stood together on the same side, while the fourth elder remained neutral. At the moment, only the eighth elder stood by her side. This situation was far from favorable. A trace of smugness lurked in the depths of the fifth elder's eyes as he interposed into their conversation. Those 5 people had a combined strength roughly equal to a person ranked 50th on the dragon list. Oh, the corners of Su Luo's lips curled up slightly. The corners of the fifth elder's lips carried an evil sneer. So long as you can prove that your strength has become equivalent to the 50th ranked individual dragon list, the deaths of those 5 people would be merely deemed normal deaths. Thereupon, nobody will continue to hold you accountable for them. Or else. Su Luo crossed her arms over her chest nonchalantly. Or else, you can get the hell out of Upstream Mountain. The fifth elder rose to his full height with a snarl. Su Luo's gaze swept across the rest of the elders' faces. Besides slightly frowning eighth elder, the other 3 elders evidently seemed to share the same opinion. Fourth elder agrees as well. Su Luo asked the fourth elder, who stood neutral. The fourth elder gazed at Su Luo, his expression cold and solemn. You were brought in by Xiao Luo. However, you did not take the assessment, and you don't have a proper one. Even if you personally do not care, you should still consider this on Xiao Luo's behalf. Su Luo nodded, expressing her understanding. At this time, the 8th elder spoke up. Certainly, you ought to participate in this assessment. However, achieving rank 50th may prove challenging. Who here isn't aware that Wu Yao is the current holder of the 50th position? Can Su Luo surpass Wu Yao? All 3 of you bullying Grandmaster Rong Yun's disciple in this fashion is in no way pleasant. The 5th elder's expression looked grim. The 7th elder sent a fierce glare at the 8th elder. The 4th elder pondered silently. He, for the first time ever, old 8's words are pleasant to hear. A chuckle sounded from outside, attracting everyone's eyes to the source. Came into their sight was an elderly man whose garments were stained with all sorts of chemicals. Those allowed to enter this room were limited to the members of the elder standing. As such, when the 6th elder appeared, he only elicited a slight frown on everyone's brows. The 5th elder glanced at the 6th elder. Go busy yourself with your medicines. We don't need you here. The 5th elder knew that the 6th elder and Su Luo were of the same ilk, sharing vile habits, and even deeming themselves good friends regardless of the age difference. Their relationship was beyond good. As such, his coming here can only be to help Su Luo, which was why the 5th elder attempted to drive the 6th elder away. However, the 6th elder had flown over with haste, so how could he be dismissed with just a single sentence? Instead, he squeezed himself by the 5th elder's side, shoving the 5th elder to the side, as he coldly snorted, Old 5th, you are simply severely overstepping. The 5th elder gazed angrily. What utter nonsense! The 6th elder glanced across to the 7th and 4th elders. You all don't want the Su girl, right? Very well. Then let me take her back with me. You all might not want here, but our pill refining tower is more than willing to fight to have her. Old 6th, shut your mouth. The 5th elder rebuked. The jurisdiction of the pill refining tower lies with me. Not you who can enter or not. Depends on my word. The 6th elder coldly sneered. When my mood is pleasant, I can address you as 5th brother. But otherwise, you are nothing. Do you want to compare and see who among the 2 of us is the first in the pill refining tower and the true leader of the pill refining tower? While saying so, the 6th elder rolled his sleeves up as if preparing to start a big fight. Originally, He and the fifth elder held co-jurisdiction over the pill refining tower. Nevertheless, by virtue of his slightly stronger abilities in refining medicine, he was the head despite having a lower rank. However, because he deemed managing these mundane, worldly matters tedious, he dumped all of the jurisdiction to the fifth elder, resulting in fifth elder gradually becoming the face of the tower. When the sixth elder spewed out these words, the fifth elder was angered to the point of nearly fainting. Chapter 24:31. Interrogation 9. No, the seventh elder shouted. Wouldn't letting Su Luo go to the pill refining tower with the sixth elder as her backer allow her to live even more comfortably? The seventh elder wanted Su Luo driven out, not driven to a better life. Then what do you want? The sixth elder side-eyed him. The sixth elder, as the head of all the pill refiners in Purgatory City, held a high status. Even among the elders group, he was given utmost respect. After all, who would take their own lives as jokes and offend the number one pill refiner for no reason? The seventh elder smiled faintly. Wuyo is ranked 50th. If this girl tries for the 50th, it would be quite difficult indeed. However, doesn't she hold a life and death contract with Wuyo? There is no harm in having the competition in advance. The sixth elder replied quite discourteously. How old is your precious Wuyo? Around 30, right? My little one here is only a teenager. Do you have the nerve to compare her with your Wu girl? You really have the nerve? Are you serious right now? Do you know how much our Su girl's strength has grown in this past half year? Yet you're still competing in advance? Who's going to do that with you? In the next half year, our Su girl's strength will make another huge leap. Do you think everyone is like your old disciples, with no progress after so many years? The sixth elder's body leaned forward, confronting him step by step. The seventh elder could only back down as he was nearly forced to the ground. He had indeed been rendered speechless by the sixth elder. Although he had a red face and clenched fists, he couldn't find any words to retaliate. The fourth elder pulled the sixth elder back. If you have something to say, then say it properly. Why the urgency? How can you not feel the urgency? You people are ganging up to bully our Su girl. Of course, you don't feel any urgency. The sixth elder grumbled. The fourth elder let out a long sigh. He was aware that the sixth elder was unruly, but he hadn't expected for him to persist in such behavior for long. Then what do you suggest? The fourth elder asked for the sixth elder's opinion. 70th rank. The sixth elder moved a stool and sat down calmly. Don't glare. Su girl has only been in the genius training camp for so long. To be promoted to that rank this quickly already requires a genius among geniuses. You should hold yourself to the same expectations you ask and see if you would measure up. As he said this, the sixth elder directed his gaze at the fifth and seventh elders, offending those two elders so much they nearly smacked him with the soles of their shoes. No, it can't be 70th rank. That was too easy. How could it force Su Luo to be driven away? The fifth elder firmly disagreed. 51st rank. The seventh elder slammed his case. 51st? If you came to Upstream Mountain for a few months, could you immediately soar to 51st? What right do you have to make others do what you yourself cannot? 69th. 69th at the worst. No. 52. 68. 53. 67. The two high-status elders who countless people looked up to at this time were like people bargaining for food at the vegetable market, yelling loudly and slamming the table, each roaring louder than the other. At last, they finally agreed. Su Luo had to be assessed to the 60th rank. If Su Luo could not pass for 60th rank, she had to pack up and leave. The sixth elder glanced at Su Luo helplessly. He could only assist her so far. Su Luo gave the sixth elder a comforting smile. It's just the 60th rank. Don't push yourself too hard. If there's no other way, then there's still the pill refining tower. With old sixth here, no one will dare to stop you from entering. The sixth elder slapped his chest and sent a deliberate look toward the fifth elder. The fifth elder was angered by this. He felt his chest tighten and his eyes nearly rolled back. Chapter 2432, Advancement 1. You, the fifth elder, gasped out loudly. The sixth elder sneered, gazing directly at the fourth elder. The one with the power to make decisions had been the fourth elder from the start. The fourth elder looked deeply at Su Luo with profound and unpredictable eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Facing the expectant gazes from both sides, the fourth elder finally came to a decision. Then let it just be the 60th rank. Do either of you have any objections? The fifth elder and the seventh elder looked at each other. Although the 60th rank was difficult, with Su Luo's bizarre luck, who knew? She might be able to muddle through. However, with those little moves, the fifth elder reluctantly waved his hand. Forget it, forget it. For the sake of the fourth elder, 60th rank can just be 60th rank. The fourth elder turned to Su Luo. Su Luo nodded with a light smile. Okay. Speaking in terms of her current abilities, although it would be difficult to reach the 60th rank, it was not impossible. Furthermore, the assessment was going to officially begin after 3 days. After returning to Wuchen Mountain, Li Man rushed up nervously. How was it? Did they make things difficult for you? Su Luo waved her hand. It can't be said to have been difficult, but they did bring up a point. What point? If I don't make it to the top 60 in this end-of-month assessment, then I can only be kicked out of Upstream Mountain. Su laughed lightly with detachment. What? Li Man agitatedly pulled at Su Luo's hands. 60th rank? How could they ask you to make it to the 60th rank? How long ago did you enter? How is it possible to test for 60th rank? How could they do this? And did you agree? Agreed. Su Luo smiled with a very leisurely appearance. Muddled. Su Luo, you're too muddled. This is an entirely impossible matter. You'll be driven out of Upstream Mountain. Li Man was extremely worried. If Su Luo was driven out, then what? Aside from everything else, Fairy Wuyo would definitely expend all efforts to chase her down, because once outside of Upstream Mountain, she would have nothing to worry about. Su Luo did not answer, only smiling. Within these 3 days, don't let anyone disturb me. After saying this, Su Luo entered the underground cultivation chamber, closing the door tightly. Ugh! Li Man sighed loudly from where she was. Su Luo was currently only at the strength of a 2-star saint rank. How could she test past the 60th rank? This was truly worrying. Li Man stomped her feet and hurriedly ran to discuss this with others in the team. Su Luo set a strict order for this matter not to be deliberately concealed, and so in less than a day's time, the news had spread through the entire Upstream Mountain. What? You said that Su Luo, who was 100th on the dragon list after entering, vowed to test for 60th rank. Originally, she was going to test for 50th rank, but the elders advised her, and so she reluctantly decided to test for 60th rank. Ha ha, this is simply the funniest joke I've heard in my life. Nothing can compare. A person ranked first from the bottom actually wants to test for 60th rank. Doesn't she know how difficult it is for us to move up just one place on the dragon list? I heard it's only been a few months since she entered. No wonder she doesn't understand any rules, daring to pretend to be the hero. Huh, it seems she'll be driven out very soon. The people outside discussed fervently and even distorted the matter into Su Luo taking the initiative to ask to test for 60th rank. If someone said that Fairy Wuyo had no hand in this matter, who would believe it? Wuyo Pavilion. Fairy Wuyo wore a pure white, light gauze garment, with her shoulders half exposed. Her red undergarment was faintly visible, and the bulges on her chest were lifted, displaying an alluring appearance. Lin Banli, Immerse, and several others were gathered around Fairy Wuyo, coaxing and holding her. Chapter 2433, Advancement 2. Immerse plucked an amber grape with his own hands and gently fed it into Fairy Wuyo's vermilion lips. As he continued to feed her, Immerse told Fairy Wuyo about the rumors outside. Do you all think that girl would be able to get the 60th place in the exam this time around? Fairy Wuyu's tone sounded enigmatic, as though she was an empress looking down from above. That's absolutely impossible. It's unreasonable no matter how I think about it, Immerse replied in a flattering manner. At this moment, however, Lin Bamley sighed softly in his heart. He thought back to the time when he was in the inner city, where he witnessed Su Luo's test in the genius training camp with his own eyes. At that time, she was not even at the commander rank. How long has it been since then? Now, she was already so powerful that even Fairy Wuyo had to be afraid of her. 60th on the dragon list? Fairy Wuyo was 50th on the dragon list. Lin Bamley truly felt that the world was unpredictable, with no constants at all. Fairy Wuyo glanced over towards Bamley. Little Lindsay, what do you think? Lin Bamley smiled. Unless she's the reincarnation of an immortal, how could she possibly reach the 60th place? In the records of the dragon list, nothing would be able to explain a jump from the bottom of the dragon list to the 60th place in 6 months. Who knew that? Fairy Wuyo would shake her head. You guys are underestimating her too much, Fairy Wuyo snorted coldly. She was able to get Chu Yang and the others killed. Even if she is not that strong, her means and craftiness make up for it. Furthermore, and even if her means and methods are not enough, her luck will make up for the rest. In short, that wench is definitely not to be underestimated. Then this time, we will also participate in the examination. Fairy Wuyo, who had not participated in the examination for a whole year, had decided to participate in this examination. Fairy Wuyo smiled coldly. With her participating personally, she didn't believe that Su Luo would still have a chance to live. By the way, what rank has Su Luo been promoted to? Fairy Wuyu's eyelids twitched. 2-star Saint rank, Immerse dutifully reported. Only 2-star Saint rank, huh? Fairy Wuyu snorted, very unimpressed. On Wuchen Mountain, Su Luo locked herself up in the basement. It was pitch black all around her, to the point where one would not be able to see one's fingers. Su Luo sat on a mat with her fingers resting on her knees and facing upward while her eyes were closed tightly. Suddenly, the corners of her mouth curled up into a light smile. She proceeded to take out a transparent dragon jade from space. The main reason why she dared to agree to take the 60th place in the exam was due to this dragon jade. She recalled that time at the Temple of the Abyss when she held up the crystal fruit lovingly and gazed at it. The crystal fruit had recorded in detail the past few days she had spent with Nangong Luoyuan. When Nangong Luoyuan saw it, he insisted on wanting to take it away. With a grin, Su Luo said, "Well, let your little plum blossom take a good look and recognize your status." Subsequently, Nangong Luoyuan unfastened a dragon jade from his waist. In his left hand, he held the dragon jade. In his right hand, he held the heart of darkness. She didn't know how he did it, but he was actually channeling the spiritual energy from the heart of darkness into the dragon jade. At that time, Su Luo's eyes had sprung wide open, and she did not blink at all as if her entire being was struck by dumbfoundedness. Nangong Luoyuan's action had opened the door to her new world toe, a new horizon. What is this for? Su Luo cautiously asked. To help you get a promotion, Nangong Luoyuan said naturally. Huh? Su Luo replied with a dazed look on her face. Since you have come a long way here, you have to collect some benefits, don't you think? Nangong Luoyuan's smile was as suave as ever. That kind of suave smile made Su Luo's heart melt, causing her to subconsciously nod and reply, "Oh." Chapter 2434, Advancement 3. Nangong Luoyuan smiled. If he had a free hand, he would definitely pat Su Luo's little head. This dark heart of yours, wasn't it meant to be handed over to your queen? Su Luo's eyes shimmered as her eyes fluttered, appearing extremely adorable. Indeed, it was intended for her. Nangong Luoyuan's tone was calm and indifferent. When he looked down and saw Su Luo pouting her lips, he couldn't help but chuckle. It's like to just hand over an empty shell to her. Su Luo was instantly filled with joy. Wrapping her arms around Nangong Liuyun's waist, she looked up in elation. However, a slight worry also welled up within her. Wouldn't you get discovered? Yes, she is not stupid. Nangong Liyun continued to pour spiritual energy out of the dark heart. When the spiritual energy was almost 95% transferred, he stopped with satisfaction. Won't it be bad if she finds out? Su Luo's heart filled with worry. Indeed, it would be bad. But even if she finds out, so what? Nangong Liyun was fearless and brimming with confidence. You're not afraid of her? Su Luo asked curiously. Not at all. Why? Su Luo was burning with curiosity. Are you afraid of Fairy Wuyu? Would you give her the treasure that could increase her strength? Nonsense. How could I be afraid of her? Why would I possibly help her increase her strength? It won't be long before I'll be able to defeat her soundly. Su Luo clenched her fist and swore. Same here. Nangong Liyun replied straightforwardly. Before Su Luo could react, he shoved the dragon jade that had absorbed the essence of the dark heart into Su Luo's arms and earnestly cautioned her by saying, if you absorb the aura inside, your strength will increase by leaps and bounds. However, there will be side effects. Piqued by curiosity, Su Luo asked while grasping the dragon jade, what side effects? A month-long coma, Nangong Liyun warned solemnly Su Luo. After you boost your strength, you will have 1 day to use your power. After that, your spiritual energy will dry up drastically, and you will fall into a coma. You will only be able to wake up after a month. Remember this at all costs. All right. Presently inside the basement, Su Luo was holding the dragon jade in her hand. Gazing at the jade tinted with dark color, her beautiful pair of eyes gleamed mystically. 60th place on the dragon list she needed to achieve this. Nevertheless, what she needed the most was to defeat Fairy Wuyu. A faint sneer appeared at the corner of Su Luo's mouth as she gripped the dragon jade tightly. If she were to surpass Fairy Wuyu in this examination, who knew how utterly infuriated the latter would be? This was something Su Luo really wished to see. The 3 days passed by quickly, and the examination would soon begin in another 5 hours. Su Luo gripped the dragon jade tightly. Ensuing wave after wave of spiritual energy gushed into her. In a split second, the originally dull dragon jade pendant became luminous. A plethora of brilliant and vivid rays of light radiated all around, making one unable to look away. The abundant spiritual energy instantly wrapped around Su Luo's body before quickly penetrating into her body. Su Luo was seated in a lotus position with her eyes closed as the peerless rays of light rushed into her body. Su Luo felt as if she was bathed in the warm spring breeze and enwreathed in the melodious twitters of birds and the charming fragrance of flowers. It was as if she was in the midst of a sea of flowers. Boom! Su Luo sensed a violent sound suddenly resonating from her body. A strong aura that appeared seemingly out of nothingness flooded into her limbs and bones, filling her with so much comfort that she almost moaned out loud. She had ascended. In this short span of time, Su Luo actually managed to ascend to a 3-star saint rank. For others, it took several years just to advance 1 rank. However, for Su Luo, the process seemed astonishingly simple and unimpeded, as if she lifted her leg and stepped right through into it. If you believe Dark Heart would only help Su Luo advance by 1 star, you were gravely mistaken. Chapter 2435. Advancement 4. If that was all there was, how would it be worth Nangong Liuyun's attention, or even the Queen's? Bang dash, a softer sound rang out not even half an hour from the noise. Su Luo's body shuddered slightly before an indescribably comfortable feeling spread out, making her feel as though she was floating. So cozy. It was so comfortable that Su Luo wished that she could drift forever in this beautiful dream. 4-star saint rank. Within just an hour, Su Luo had already been promoted by 2 levels. This rate of promotion was simply too frightening. Anyone would absolutely lose their minds if they found out about it. If someone observed her closely then, they would clearly see the spiritual energy within Su Luo's body continue to rapidly grow. Bit by bit, it reached the threshold of 5-star saint rank. Bang! She had actually broken through. That meant that Su Luo had been promoted all the way to 5-star saint rank. Su Luo slowly opened her eyes. A sparkle flashed across her eyes, shining out with a myriad of colors. Su Luo was stunned by the speed of her promotion. That was why Nangong Luoyuan had told her to take it easy when using it. By some miracle, she actually managed to advance by 3 stars. It took a long while before Su Luo came back to her senses. Then, Su Luo's transmission jade vibrated slightly. Su Luo pulled it out to have a look. It was a message from Li Man. You have to leave right now for the exam venue, or you'll be late, Li Man urged with a postscript. The 6th Elder is also coming. The 6th Elder? The exam was for students. What was the 8th Elder coming over for? Su Luo was confused, but she quickly came to a realization. Had the 6th Elder rushed over to protect her because he was afraid that people would try to cause her trouble during the exam? The 8th Elder was forced and had no other choice but to help her. However, the 6th Elder was truly genuine in treating Su Luo like one of his own. The protectiveness he had over her was truly touching. Su Luo clenched her fists quietly. When her adoptive father returned, she would definitely fight for greater benefits for the 6th Elder. Walking out of the underground room, Su Luo immediately spotted Li Man and the others. The group was waiting at the entrance for Su Luo to come out. Huh, Luo, why do you feel different from before? Li Man sized up Su Luo with confusion. She felt an aura of mystery emanating from Su Luo's body, and fear and dread subconsciously rose within her heart. Luo Qing also stared at Su Luo in shock. Su Luo had had the same cultivation realm as him before. However, he now found Su Luo to be covered in a cloud of obscurity. He was not even incapable of getting a glimpse of her cultivation realm. Facing the gaping expressions of the band, Su Luo smiled and naturally replied, I've only accidentally broken through a few ranks. There's nothing to be surprised about. Everyone was stunned into unmoving blocks of wood. Accidentally broken through a few ranks is nothing. There's nothing to be surprised about. Isn't that a major event capable of making people go insane? You are now. Li Man was so excited that she was unable to even speak properly. 5-star saint rank. The person who finished Li Man's sentence was not Su Luo, but the 6th Elder. The 6th Elder rushed before Su Luo and carefully looked her up and down, his eyeballs on the brink of popping out of their sockets in a state of incomparable shock. What is this? What in the world is this? Weren't you only at 2-star saint rank when I saw you a few days ago? Within 3 days of not seeing her, Su Luo had managed to raise her rank by 3 stars. A whole 3 stars. Was the world too crazy, or is it him that was unable to keep up with the world? How frightening. The 6th Elder was unable to come up with an answer. Throughout his long life, he had never seen such a sudden rise in someone's cultivation before. Chapter 2436. Advancement 5. After reaching the saint rank, it normally took months or even years to climb up one step. There had never been a case of advancing 3 stars in only 3 days. No matter how calm the 6th Elder had been thus far, he was about to break out in a frenzy now. He wanted to cut Su Luo up and study her. It would definitely lead to this century's greatest innovation ever. Luo, did you really advance 3 stars? 3 stars? Li Man tugged on Su Luo's hands with excitement. Su Luo nodded calmly. I barely advanced 3 stars due to my lack of potential. Shocked by Su Luo's statement, Li Man almost coughed up some blood. Nevertheless, she soon got excited again. She was jumping up and down like she was the one who had advanced 3 stars. This is awesome. Ha! Totally brilliant. It came at the perfect time. Today is the day of the trials, and Su Luo just advanced by 3 stars. Ha ha ha! Li Man Man had initially been worried that Su Luo wouldn't be able to get into the top 60 in the exam. However, she now believed that it would be fairly easy for her to obtain a spot in the top 60. Fairy Wee would probably go mad if she knew Luo had advanced 3 stars just before the trials, right? Luo, what happened exactly? Will there be side effects from you advancing so fast? Senior brother Luo Qing was always thoughtful and considerate. Su Luo nodded. It's a long story. It's not exactly something I can explain in just a few sentences. It's almost time for the trials anyway. Let's go there first, and we'll talk about this later. Everyone in her team was very obedient. Each one of them held back the excitement in their eyes and happily hurried to the trial location with animated motions. In addition to Su Luo, the other members of her team were also going to participate in this trial. Everyone headed to the destination together in a grandiose manner. Fortunately, with the 6th Elder's protection, those people who tried to bother them withdrew upon seeing him. So Su Luo was able to get to her destination on time. Su Luo saw that and sneered inwardly. She certainly knew the identity of the person who hated her so much and desperately wanted her gone. No one else would do something this stupid except Fairy Wu Yu and Li Luoming. 6th Elder, words cannot express my appreciation for what you've done, Su Luo said calmly. Even though these people couldn't hurt her, they could have delayed her or possibly even barred her from participating in the trials. Being absent from a trial was considered as forfeiting one's position, so Su Luo would have had to leave. The 6th Elder waved his hands. Even if I didn't come, these little obstacles are nothing to your current strength. But Su Luo chuckled, but they would certainly have wasted a lot of my time. See, even now, I'm almost late. There were many people standing at the front of the broad plaza. They were all students in the ranks of 50 to 100 on the dragon list. There was a separate trial location for those in the ranks of 1 to 50. The difference in strength was too great, so it was unsuitable to test them all together in the same place. Most people were standing, with the exception of just one person who sat comfortably without restraint on a soft and fluffy sofa with many men serving by her side. Needless to say, who else could enjoy this kind of luxury aside from Fairy Wu Yu? Mo Zay's gaze deepened when he glanced at Su Luo. Then he leaned in to whisper something in a Fairy Wu Yu's ear. Fairy Wu Yu barely lifted her eyelids to look in Su Luo's direction. Remaining calm and collected, she scoffed. Of course, those petty tricks wouldn't get to her. It was originally Mo Zay's idea to obstruct Su Luo on her way here. Fairy Wu Yu thought the probability of success was too low, so she didn't pay him any mind and merely let him do as he wished. Just as she had expected, nothing came of it. Fairy Wu Yu felt something was strange as she glanced over at Su Luo. However, the mystical light flashed by too fast, so she didn't catch the source of this unusual feeling. Chapter 2437, Advancement 6, What's Wrong? Lin Banley and Mo Zay asked with concern. Fairy Wu Yu appeared cold and solemn as she ruminated on that unusual feeling. She tried to grasp the aura that had flashed by just now. Intuitively, she had a hunch that there seemed to be looming danger lurking within. No matter how hard she mulled over it, she couldn't come up with anything. Thereupon, Fairy Wu Yu simply stood up and sauntered towards Su Luo with her head high and chest puffed. Marching up to her, Fairy Wu Yu stopped in front of Su Luo. Su Luo was calm and collected as she nonchalantly stood there while joking with Lin Man Man, completely ignoring Fairy Wu Yu, who seemed to be glaring at her like a tiger watching its prey. Momentarily, silence befell in the surroundings as everyone retreated a few steps behind. Consequently, Su Luo and Fairy Wu Yu happened to be standing face to face at this moment, surrounded by a small circle of people. Fairy Wu Yu scrutinized Su Luo from top to bottom. her eyebrows knitted tightly together into a character. You. Fairy Wio glared at Su Luo doubtfully, bewilderment evident in her eyes. Su Luo leisurely shot a glance at Fairy Wuyo, apathetic. Fairy Wuyo's anger instantly rose in her heart. She raised her hand and tried to slap Su Luo's face. In that quick moment, just when her hand was about to hit Su Luo's face, Su Luo's right hand already grasped Fairy Wuyo's arms. Su Luo glared at her coldly. You want to die? Fairy Wuyo was dumbfounded. So was everyone watching from around them. What the heck is happening right now? Wasn't Su Luo's power much weaker than Fairy Wuyo? Had she actually blocked Fairy Wuyo's hand with only 2 fingers? The crowds expressed disbelief. They rubbed their eyes over and over again, only to find that what they had seen was not a dream, but something that truly happened. Everyone was flabbergasted alike. At this moment, Fairy Wuyo was speechless as well. Furiously, she pulled her hand back. Unknown to the spectators, Fairy Wuyao's hand, hidden in her wide sleeves, was red and swollen, pulsing with pain. Who told Su Luo to be petty-minded? When she clutched Fairy Wuyo's hand, she unleashed her origin fire attribute. Even Fairy Wuyo would get burned when the fallen lotus was unleashed. You? How did you become so powerful? Fairy Wuyo glared at Su Luo. In her eyes, waves of envy, indignance, and astonishment seemed to condense to apparent bewilderment. With her hands behind her back, Su Luo gave her an insouciant glance. Powerful? I feel this is pretty average. That was a typical show-off one. Fairy Wuyo almost spat blood out of rage. Triple advancing. Su Luo, you advanced 3 stars all at once. Fairy Wuyo was finally certain of what she had seen. Su Luo indeed advanced 3 entire stars. 5-star Saint rank. Lin Banley felt like he was dreaming. Su Luo had just entered commander rank when he saw her 6 months ago. But now in a blink of an eye, she was already more powerful than him. For a moment, Lin Banley just felt his future was bleak. He felt like his entire life had been a waste. It wasn't just Lin Banley. At this moment, everyone in the crowd looked at Su Luo with complicated emotions. Those gazes contained jealousy, envy, surprise, and disbelief, but it was mostly self-doubt and self-denial. So, there were indeed super geniuses like this. At this moment, Fairy Wuyo chuckled coldly. She pointed at Su Luo and accused, Su Luo, what kind of secret magic did you use to improve your strength this quickly? Do you intend to keep it for your own use? Don't you think you should share your method to the public so everyone can benefit? Su Luo, you are too selfish. Chapter 2438, Advancement 7. Su Luo glanced at Fairy Wuyo. Finding an excuse to incriminate someone was not one. Fairy Wuyo finally used her wits to think of such an accusation to ostracize her. To give credit to Fairy Wuyo, her words were very effective. People were already madly jealous of Su Luo. After Fairy Wuyo's provocation, everyone instantly glared at Su Luo as if she was the greatest sinner for not sharing her secret method. Su Luo scoffed. She turned to Fairy Wuyo with an unreadable smile. Well then, even if I do have a non-existent special method, why would I share it? Please try to ask yourself the question. If you found a method of quick advancement, would you be willing to share it with everyone? Su Luo scanned the crowd and stopped at Fairy Wuyo's face. She raised her thin eyebrows pointedly. Our selfless Fairy Wuyo, would you be so kind to share your special method with the world if you have one? Would you? Fairy Wuyo was tongue-tied by the question. She moved her lips. No words came out of her. She wanted to say she would, but she knew the truth. No one would be so foolish as to share it with the public instead of hiding it for themselves. Fairy Wuyo's face twisted under many eyes. There was utter silence all around. Just at this moment, the Purgatory Tower of Trials broke out in powerful peals. Dang! The sound of the drum carried a sense of a great distance, resounding far and wide. The trial had officially begun. Basically, everyone knew the instructions of the trial. Su Luo herself had been lectured in detail by Li Man many times. The Tower of Trials had 6 levels. Inside, every move was traced and analyzed by the system. Through an individual's performance, the system would accurately calculate their score and establish the ranking. One cannot rank first solely based on power. Dang! The giant clock on the top of the tower signaled distantly, and the Scarlet Gate slowly opened. Whoosh! The crowd flooded through the gate of the Tower of Trials. The mass of experienced people jammed themselves inside like sardines. Su Luo and the squad were blocked at the back. Li Man was anxious, jumping up and down, and hurrying those in front of them nonstop. Hurry up and go inside. Various voices objected. The front is blocked. We can't get over either. Su Luo looked at the pathway that seemed to be intentionally barricaded. She squinted. Was it like this before? Su Luo asked Li Man. Not at all. I've gone to the trial several times, and it was always clear before. Who would have guessed it would get blocked completely this time? Li Man couldn't stay still because of her nerves. Su Luo knew who at heart. The person who wanted to stop her from completing the mission was Fairy Wuyo. Perhaps Fairy Wuyo had not paid much attention to her before, but after seeing her advance to 5-star saint rank, Fairy Wuyo let her jealousy take over. After about 5 minutes, the pathway was clear again. Everyone rushed inside. Su Luo, Li Man, and the others were pushed to the very back. Li Man was panicking, but Su Luo kept her cool. The first level. It was a desert world. A light smoke blanketed the surface of the yellow sands. The heat was strong enough to make the body feel like it was burning. Chapter 2439, Advancement 8. Su Luo had high heat tolerance, but Li Man and the others didn't. We can't stay here for long. Hurry and look for the entrance for the next level, Su Luo commanded, and immediately let out the little fox sable. Su Luo was always confident because she had a little fox sable that would automatically find the right path for her. At this moment, there were just a few people left in the desert, scattering around, about 7 to 8 of them. The rest of the participants had already entered the second level. It was quite obvious how much Su Luo had fallen behind. Every participant could check their ranking at any moment. Su Luo took the time to take the jade amulet out and couldn't help but bitterly smile after seeing her rank on it. Rank 100th. She was still number 100 on the dragon list right now, the last of the upstream mountain. Li Man, Captain Luo Qing, and the others were looking for the entrance hastily. Because of the constant increase of the temperature in this desert, there were only 2 options if they couldn't get out of it in time. The first was to forfeit and choose to leave the tower. The second was to be burned to coal. Luo, what should we do? Li Man hurriedly stomped her feet on the ground. She was defeated at the first level last time and didn't even get to come across the shadow of the door to the second level at all. Don't worry, I will take you all to the second level. Su Luo forced a smile, seeing them roaming around like flies without heads. She said, all of you follow me. Li Man and the others looked at Su Luo with doubts. In any case, they had previously tried the trials many times and gathered some experience. Could Su Luo really find the path on her first attempt? It was doubtful. However, people quickly gathered around Su Luo and followed behind due to their trust in her. Su Luo held the little fox sable in her arms and asked it to show her the full map of the first level. Now, she could see the complete map in her mind. It was detailed with every little pathway and plant. The fire lizard grass. After multiple checks and comparisons, Su Luo found a cluster of messy footprints around the fire lizard grass. This proved that many people had stood there before. Follow me. Su Luo gave the order and flew forward like a strike of lightning. After her, Captain Luo Qing waved his right hand, signaling the whole team to follow behind. And so, a group of people followed Su Luo and flew with her into the distance. The The length and breadth of the desert were infinite. There was only yellow sand as far as the naked eye could see. Under the sky, filled with yellow sands, it was easy to lose direction. But this was just for the majority of people. These obstacles were nothing to the Su Luo, who had the complete map of the level. The few remaining stragglers saw Su Luo and the others flying to the east. They were full of suspicions and confusion, but still chose to see a dead horse as alive and held on to a glimmer of hope one because they didn't have any other choices. The fire lizard grass was located next to a desert poplar tree on the east side. The poplar tree had already died. Its trunk was withered but still stood firmly, and that tiny bunch of fire lizard grass was planted right around its roots. After arriving at the destination, everyone could tell, without Su Luo explaining, because a hole, wide enough to allow one person to enter at a time, had appeared on the trunk of the poplar tree. Luo, you're awesome. How did you know it was here from so far away? Li Man held Su Luo's hand with excitement, talking nonstop. Probably because... I'm good at guessing, Su Luo giggled. We're already way behind. Let's hurry and go in now. Chapter 2440. Advancement. 9. Su Luo thought those few people may not have found their way themselves. It was definitely Fairy Wuyo at the head with them following her. As for those 10, because they had been blocked at the entrance, they were unable to keep up with the team and had fallen behind. The space between the desert poplar trees was neither big nor small. It had just enough room for one person to pass through. Su Luo, leading as the head, squeezed through first, and then the second, the third. Su Luo only felt a white light flash in front of her eyes, and when she opened them again, she was already in a completely different world. Unlike the previous blazing hot desert, here it surprisingly was a plateau with snowfall. When Su Luo came out, she found that there were at least a dozen people around. They were flying here and there in midair, searching for the secret path to the third level. Su Luo glanced around, finding no trace of Fairy Wuyo. It was apparent that she had taken her beloved ones to run to the third level. Perhaps they had even already run to the fourth level. When the people on the second level saw Su Luo coming up, a trace of surprise flashed in their eyes. How did you all come up so quickly? Hadn't they been intentionally blocked off before? To find that secret passage, based on their strengths, shouldn't they have had to search for a considerable long time? Li Man slid a cold glance over them. What is it? Do you have any problems? That person snorted coldly. I have no problems, however, the second level will let you off cheaply. What did you say? Li Man was so angry she clenched her fists. I said, we will find the secret passage very soon. You guys have arrived and are just picking up everything already done for you. That person sneered, mocking them without words. No need for you guys to lead us. We can find the way ourselves. Li Man said in a huff. Then find it, if you have the ability. When we find the secret passage, you guys don't follow us there. That person's tone was cold, his words harsh. Hee, if we find the secret passage, you also can't follow us. Li Man coldly snorted twice. Watching the two people arguing, Su Luo felt that it was quite funny, and she pulled Li Man's hand. Let's go. Other people had to release their innate spiritual strength to search inch by inch for the entrance to the secret passage. But for Su Luo, there was no need for this at all. She only needed to open her mind, use the world map inside to sweep through it, and before long, she would be able to find the hidden secret passage. Su Luo quickly flew towards the central place with Li Man and her group. After flying for a short time, Li Man felt that something was not right. She turned her head back and saw that the person she had been arguing with before was now following them step by step. Li Man ridiculed him. We have already found the secret passage. Don't follow us if you have the ability. That man held his communication amulet, glaring at Li Man in anger. If they could, who would want to follow behind them? But the problem was, Just now his friend had sent him a message via the communication amulet, saying he had already found the secret passage and telling him to just follow the roadmap. Who knew that this roadmap was actually the same one Li Man and the others took? Hey, didn't you agree not to follow us? Hurry and move away. Li Man waved her hand at the man behind them. The man was half dead with anger, and at last, he took a deep breath and asked Li Man, "Where are you guys going?" Li Man furrowed her eyebrows with contempt. "We are going to the place where the secret passage is." "Who do you think you are? Why should I tell you?" That man was so angry he gasped for breath heavily. He wanted to fly ahead, but the problem was that Li Man and the others were flying at high speed, so he could not overtake them and could only miserably hang in the back. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.